Good morning, Lions. I'm past District Governor Dave Roberts, and our next session is going to be on public speaking and you. And for a requirement for Lions University Doctorate program, I created original content that hopefully meets Second Vice District Governor's-elect's requirements, but to talk about public speaking in a broader sense, whether it's impromptu or whether it's more planned. And so I pulled together a program for you this morning that I hope you'll find both informative and enjoyable. Now, a lot of times when you hear public speaking, people have different reactions to speaking in public. And I know I happen to be the grandson of two state representatives. My grandmother and my grandfather both served in Hartford in the legislature. They loved to speak in public. But when I took my first college class, my sophomore year in public speaking, I went up in front of the room, I stood there behind a podium, and I started giggling. And I could not stop giggling. And fortunately, the professor ended the class, and he asked me to stay after class, and he says, Dave, I think you've got a lot of abilities to be a good public speaker, but let me give you some tips. And so I've tried to incorporate a few tips in this presentation that Professor Sealer gave me all those years ago, back in 1979. But I wanted to make sure that you all understood that as Second Vice District Governors, First Vice District Governors, District Governors, and even afterwards as past District Governors or past Council Chairs, public speaking is such a valuable skill. I'd just like to hear what your all's thoughts are on public speaking. Ed, what do you think? Do you like to speak in public, or do you cringe?
No, I don't cringe at it. I've had to speak to large groups at various other things prior to Lions. It's always interesting to talk to 1,000 parents of Little League players and try to explain what their season's going to be like. So I've talked to some large groups. So as long as I have time to properly prepare. I think the cringing might come when you're put on the spot and you're completely unprepared. But as long as preparation time is there, it does not bother me.
Excellent, excellent. Hillary, do you like to speak in public?
I do, as long as I'm with Ed on that. Preparation gives me a comfort level. There's an old saying that was, I believe it was Lombardi, if I'm not mistaken, said, don't prepare just enough to do a good job, but prepare enough so that you don't make mistakes. And I think that so you can't make mistakes. I think is actually the quote, so to speak. But so I would say I enjoy training. On a scale of my top is I very much enjoy training. I very much like presenting, and speeches are probably where I'm the weakest of the three main categories of public speaking.
Dan?
That's the way the question is.
I'm interested in hearing.
That's the first thing you don't do at home. I learned that when Keith Lemieux was when I did immersion learning, he was my instructor for that. I find it unnerving, but I find if I have my bullet points, I'm good. If I can like look up and down, I'm fine. I think it's a key of breathing and being able to just like, okay, this is what I think, and then like have your bullets, but don't rely on your bullets. So I mean, years ago it was like practice talking into the mirror. That doesn't work. Not for me anyway. So I just picture, and I don't look at anyone direct eye contact. I look around the room.
We're going to talk about some of these during this, some positive tips and some things to avoid. So it's interesting when you speak, and do you say or ah? And I know when I went to Faculty Development Institute, they film you. And the first time, they give you a copy of it that you can go back into your hotel room and watch it. And it was unnerving watching yourself. You watch your hand gestures, you watch your body gestures. You know, instructors are supposed to move around. You're supposed to talk at a slow pace. But watching the first time I did my presentation in Reno, Nevada, and Hillary was one of the instructors there, it was unnerving to see yourself and go like, is that what I sound like? Is that what I look like? So it's really a good lesson to learn, and I think it really can help you versus like, you know, looking in the mirror, but to actually sit quietly. And at the end of it, we have a thumb drive here that actually has 2 of my presentations that they give you. So if you ever get, as a leader, to go to Faculty Development Institute, I really highly recommend it, and it's a great exercise. Annette, do you like to speak in public?
Well, I am a former educator. Even though I've been retired for 2 years, I'm still doing a lot of subbing. My problems I've noticed over the years, even as a teacher, I move a lot. And not everybody can follow your movements all the time, because as an educator, you have to circulate the room and speak to the children and make sure that everybody hears. But when you're talking to adults, more so, you need there needs to be less movement. Sometimes there's too much movement in the room. I learned that. The other thing you had already alluded to, the ums. For me, I mean, I had to concentrate on a particular word. I would say and, instead of the but there's too many ands in there sometimes for me.
So out of this, I heard a couple of things, and have you all heard of the 6 Ps? I bet if I write this, you're going to hear it. Proper, preparation, and practice prevents poor performance. So proper preparation and practice prevents poor performance, the 6 Ps. And, you know, sometimes when you have an impromptu opportunity, you don't get to practice. But you may get to practice. And what do I mean by that? A lot of times, as incoming second vice district governors or club officers, you're going to be called on to go to events and asked to say something. Well, you can have some thoughts in the back of your head already of what you want to communicate. Maybe it's the international president's theme. That's always something good to have in the back of your head. I know one of the things that I always try to do is just be able to pronounce the international president's name. And it's really important that you can share that with people. But when you're at the club level, the zone level, the district, multiple district, people sometimes want to hear like what's going on at the international level. It's like when our international director, Mark Lyons, comes in, and what has he heard? What has he seen? In his travels, he and his wife extensively on behalf of LCI. But to have that ability to speak, and while this is an optional session today, in that it's not required, I think the skill of public speaking, and the more you practice and prepare, did I spell preparation wrong? Thank you. Here I am. I was an English teacher.
Oh, watch out.
I actually taught 7th grade for 1 year. Thank you. And I just looked at that. But proper preparation, see, you're supposed to point these things out. Proper preparation and practice prevents poor performance. So it's really an important skill. So here today, you know, we're going to look at some both planned and impromptu opportunities to speak. But one of the things that I think is important when you're speaking, there's really 2 types of opportunities. There's training versus presenting. And do you want to give information, or are you trying to build skills? For example, in my case, I'm hoping to impart some skills to you as leaders in your district to be able to go out, to have a comfort level in speaking. If you're called on to give an impromptu speech, to be able to say something. And one of the examples that I'll use from our district, I was at a zone meeting recently, and I like to go around and visit the various zones. And I know that we have at least one current zone chair here, but we had an acting zone chair. And about halfway through the meeting, out of the blue, she said, "Past District Governor Dave Roberts, would you like to stand up and speak?" Out of the blue. And you could say no, but knowing me, I said, yes, I would. And she said, "We went on Lions Day with the United Nations this year. Would you like to just share a highlight about it?" And so I did. And usually we're going to talk about making points and making one point, but it's always important to think about, is there another point? And we're going to talk about knowing your audience. But one of the points that I wanted to make was to highlight the district governor who happened to be there with his wife. So I mentioned how our district governor, when he came in, made Lions Day with the United Nations one of his priority projects. He wanted to restart it in our district. We used to send busloads of people, and then it kind of died down. Well, this year, he put together, with me as the chair, a group, and we chartered 2 busloads of people to go this year, including 37 Leos. And it was a great initiative to get young people involved in this initiative. So when this acting zone chair, Tracy Dubois, said, "Would you like to get up and do something?" I got up and I made the comment about how we did the buses. We sold 37 scholarships for the Leos to have free transportation. And then I complimented the district governor on having the foresight for reinvigorating this initiative. So again, when you're speaking, are you training like we're training here, or are you presenting? That's giving information. At that session, I was giving information to the attendees. And again, we're going to be talking about knowing your audience. So our objectives here today, we have 5 objectives. And Ed, do you want to read the first objective?
Recognize benefits of public speaking.
So the key word is, what are the benefits of public speaking? And Pam, do you want to read the second one?
Anticipate public speaking situations.
So when do you think you might have an opportunity to speak in public? You know, for Lori Ann in her district, there might be opportunities for her to speak. You might be going to an event, you know, in any of the districts. Nanette, can you read the third objective?
Third objective says utilize tactics for speaking.
Yeah. So what tactics are out there? We're going to be talking about tactics for thinking quickly on your feet. When Zone Chair Tracy said, "Dave, would you like to speak?" It was like, what quickly clicks in your head? This is a key opportunity. We had 5, I think, or 3, at least 5 past district governors at that session. We had, I think, 4 or 5 club presidents. We had the governor. We had the second vice district governor-elect. A great group of people. So what tactics do you want to think quickly? Hillary, can you read the 4th one?
To identify steps to effectively prepare for a speech with short notice.
You know, sometimes as second vice district governors, you're not going to get a lot of notice. Sometimes you might. You know, the district governor might be scheduled to speak, and then something comes up. The first can't do it, and they may call on the second. I know when I was a district governor, I tried to share the duties with my first and seconds to give them opportunities to be able to speak, because I thought it was a really important skill. And one of the last sessions we talked about communications, the pros and cons of communications. But the ability to speak and share information is really important. And then our fifth objective is to demonstrate effective delivery techniques. And it's so important. Pam, we talked about eye contact. When you're speaking to somebody, look at one person to make one point, and then look at somebody else. And we're going to talk about that eye contact. But voice and vocal expression, your body movement and gestures, and your use of language. We're in tab 4 for this session, but at tab 8 is an evaluation sheet, and we're on page 2 of tab 8 for the evaluation if you want to see what the criteria that we're going to be using to evaluate today. So I encourage you to make sure you fill out. We haven't talked about the evaluation sheets, I don't think, so far today, but make sure you do. So are there any questions on these objectives? So we're going to have 5 objectives for this, okay? So, because we have a small number because of scheduling changes and stuff, we're not going to do this exercise. But let me just go through this because this might be something that you might want to try sometime. And there's a lot of different ways to get people to feel comfortable. And in this exercise of self-introduction, and you can come up with it any way possible, but, you know, find out who they are and possibly how long they've been a lion. Are they a short-term lion, long-term? What's the highest title they hold in Lions, their home club, their family? And one thing that I always like to do, and there's different types of icebreakers with people, but this is to ask people to give you 3 statements, 2 truths and 1 lie. So this is a great way to do an introduction. Usually should be no more than 2 minutes. If we had more people here, we were actually going to try to do this and have you do it. But let me just show you an example of how I would do something like this. Good morning, Lions. I'm Lion Dave Roberts, and I'd like to welcome you all here today. For the past 9 years, I've been a member of Lions Clubs International, and I've had the honor to serve as a past district governor. One of the things you do as a district governor is recruit new Lions to join your organization. Many times, people will tell you, I'm just too busy. I don't have time to join Lions. And I tell them, I'm married, I have 6 kids, 5 boys and a girl, ages 6 to 23. If I can find time to be a Lion, if I can find time to be an officer in Lions, I think maybe you could find time to be a Lion. Now, I belong to the Barkhamsted Lions Club. Our club's known for doing environmental initiatives. Our club is 52 years old. My family's actually lived in Connecticut since 1629. And in Barkhamsted, I'm the 8th generation in Barkhamsted, the 13th generation in Connecticut. So my family's been here 390 years. Now I'm going to give you 3 statements, and you tell me which one is the lie, okay? The first statement is, I've worked for 2 United States presidents. The second statement is, I'm the great-grandnephew of the first female U.S. dentist. And the third statement is, I've met every U.S. president since Jimmy Carter. Okay, Pam, which one is the lie?
Oh, I'm so stumped.
1, 2, or 3?
I'll go with 3.
You say number 3 is the lie, okay? Nanette?
I say 2 is the lie.
Nanette says 2.
Like this one.
Hillary?
I thought 2 as well.
Ed?
Obviously, we know you have a political background, so it should be 2. Or are you trying to trick us with that? I'm going to go with 2 also.
Okay, this is the lie.
Yes.
I have met every U.S. president since Jimmy Carter, except for our current president. But I have worked for both George W. Bush and Barack Obama in the Department of Health and Human Services. And I am the great-grandnephew of the first female U.S. dentist who was born in Barkhamsted.
Wow.
And in the old days, you didn't go to dental school. Instead, you learned from somebody, and she learned from her husband, who died at 28 years old. And she went on and practiced in New Haven, Connecticut until her 80s.
Wow.
And so just another interesting tidbit. But again, I'm Dave Roberts from the Barkhamsted Lions Club, and I'd like to welcome you all here today. So what did you learn about this self-introduction?
What did I learn about?
Did I do it? Did I follow it exactly?
Yes, absolutely. I like the fact that you had your little bullets there, and if you are at a meeting of sorts, maybe you can pull out your little 3x5 card and say, I know which ones I need to touch on. Is that something you do on a normal basis? Maybe or maybe not. But I think if you have something maybe in your pocket or in your handbag, whichever the case may be, you're always ready to give some information about yourself, give it a proper introduction.
Or a little hook,
There you go.
what interests people. Is it the long heritage? Is it the family situation? What is it that gets people to think, I didn't know that about that person? So these are the types of things, when you're out there, first as second vice district governors, people want to know you. Our council chair yesterday published on Facebook what he actually does when he's not working full-time for Lions Club International. He got so many comments back. We didn't know that about him. It gave us a whole nother facet about his passion for quality air and the ability to breathe quality of air. And he's turned personal story into his professional work. That's what people want to know about us as humans. And by having the ability to go out and speak, so like when Lori Ann goes out to speak, there may be stories she wants to share with people. And sometimes it's things that we may not even think about that interest people. Like, did you know there was a first female, there has to be a first, but the first female U.S. dentist as certified by the National Dental Association? And they actually did a write-up on her when I lived in San Diego and was a county supervisor out there. But people don't think about these things. But it may be anything. It may be something you've done in your background that might get people. So when you're out there talking as officers, think about that. But Oliver Wendell Holmes, and I like the previous speakers, if you know who this is, a former Supreme Court Justice, Associate Supreme Court Justice, back at the last century, 1902 to 1932, he said, speak clearly if you speak at all. Carve every word before you let it fall. And that's why when I was asked to speak at the zone meeting, I quickly thought it was getting long in the evening and we had eaten. What do these people really want to hear about this past district governor? So you have to think quickly on your feet, assess the audience, and give them something that they might be interested in that they can take back to their clubs or to that zone that would be of interest. So in my case, hopefully that they're going to be involved with sponsoring seats for the bus for Lions Day with the UN next year, or we talked about the district governor's initiative to implement this training software, not only in our district, but the council chair had blessed it in the multiple. So speak clearly if you speak at all. Carve every word before you let it fall. So we're going to talk about some of the benefits of public speaking. In tab 4 on page 2, you'll find some places there where you can write down if you want. But what do you think some of the benefits are of public speaking?
Get your message out.
Message out. As a future governor, you're going to have a theme for the year. you're gonna have the international president's theme, you're gonna have, you know, what the multiple is doing. So it's a way to get your message out. Other benefits of public speaking.
Well, clarity with your message, I think is, not only just getting your message out, but, depending on the audience, massaging it for the particular group that you're speaking to. Whether it's a, boots on the ground at the club level, or whether it's at a USA-Canada forum, you've got to cater to the audience.
I think it builds confidence. You know, you saw this morning how confident Hillary was speaking here. But he does that. He spoke at multiple events. You've heard he's been selected for a Singapore opportunity when District Governor-elects will be in Singapore in a little over a year from now. But it gives you a confidence level. I know I spoke in town of Granby before the Board of Selectmen, and then I was asked to be a commissioner in Granby, so I'm now on the Granby Conservation Commission. But it creates opportunities, and when people hear you speak, it might create new opportunities for you. People might say, I want to belong to Lions Clubs International because they have some very articulate people there that really share the same passion for service that I share, that passion for service. So increased opportunities. And another example in my case is that I was asked this year to be a backup speaker for Lions Day with the United Nations because a past international president knew I knew the topic, and they were worried they might have a cancellation. Fortunately, they didn't, but they were worried about cancellations, and he called and said, would you be a backup speaker just in case we need somebody? And I'm sure Hillary is asked many times to do things like that as he progresses through Lions. And that's why having the ability for, you know, Lorianne, for Ed, you know, for anybody going through leadership, it's so important. And even eventually when you're a past district governor or past council chair, you'll still have opportunities to speak at organizations and associations, both internal to Lions and external to Lions. So it's a great thing. So there's a number of benefits for public speaking. Confidence building, opportunities, getting new members. In California, I was asked to go on TV a number of times to speak about Lions. It was the beginning of the centennial year, and that made a big difference. We had to push, a lot of people still haven't gotten the message since 1987 that women are Lions. And that was one of the first questions a female asked me. You allow women to be members when I went on TV. So it gives you an opportunity to say, in my district out there, we were 50-50 men and women. And I know in 23B, we're getting close to 50-50 women. So it's a good opportunity to get your message out. So anticipating speaking situations. A lot of times when you're driving to a meeting, there could be an opportunity to speak. You could create an opportunity to speak. You might go up to whoever's running the meeting and say, could I have 2 minutes to share this? So you have to anticipate opportunities. But sometimes, like in my case, at this zone meeting,